Okay, have you ever looked at a puzzle where the pieces just seem like they're from completely different boxes? Well, today, we're going to put one of those puzzles together. And I have a feeling the final picture might just change how you see, well, everything. So let's lay out the pieces. At first glance, these four things have absolutely nothing to do with each other. I mean, we're talking about a dense government manual, a bankruptcy filing, a scientific brain scan study, and a super abstract theory about language. But trust me, there's a golden thread, a hidden connection that ties them all together. So, first up, we've got a chemical handler's manual from the DEA. This thing is just page after page of super rigid rules, meticulous procedures. It's all designed to build this fortress of control around certain chemicals. You could say it's a blueprint for a top-down system. And then we have this, a bankruptcy filing for the San Francisco Art Institute. Think about that. After 150 years of shaping culture, this single document marks the moment its entire system, financial, educational, you name it, just failed. This isn't just a business closing, it's basically the fossil record of a collapse. Our third piece is a neuroscience paper. And what researchers did here was use fMRI scans to look deep inside the brains of teenagers. They were trying to find the long-term effects of prenatal drug exposure. So they weren't just looking at behavior on the surface, they were literally mapping the underlying wiring. And our final piece, this is the most abstract one, is a diagram from the mathematician René Thom. He had this wild idea called catastrophe theory, which basically says there are these fundamental, universal shapes that structure how any event unfolds, whether it's a wave rolling onto a shore, a market crash, or even the way we build a sentence. It's a theory about the very architecture of change itself. Okay, so a control manual, a corporate collapse, a map of the brain, and a theory of thought. What on earth is the master key? What's the one single idea that unlocks how all of these are connected? Well, let's start putting the pieces together. And we're going to begin with the brain. You know, that neuroscience study is the perfect place to start. It shows us something absolutely crucial. Looking at the surface of a problem, it's usually not enough. You have to look at the structure underneath. The goal here was pretty straightforward. Researchers wanted to see if they could find a reliable biological signature for prenatal cocaine exposure in teens. So they gathered all this behavioral data, things like reaction time, how accurate they were on certain tasks, but they also mapped the actual connections inside their brains. And the results were just fascinating. When the researchers looked at the behavioral data, the surface level stuff, they found nothing. No significant differences between the groups. But when they analyzed the brain connectivity, the actual structure of the system, suddenly a clear, powerful pattern just jumped right out. How powerful? They could tell which group a teen belonged to with over 90% accuracy. And this right here is our first big clue. The real story isn't in a system's visible behavior, it's in its hidden wiring. Okay, so now let's zoom out and see how that exact same idea works on a societal level. We're going to look at two systems, one that was built for total control and another one that just completely collapsed. The DEA manual is a masterclass in trying to control a system by just writing more and more rules. You've got these strict limits on sales, down to the gram, mandatory logbooks for every single transaction, self-certification for sellers. It's a massive attempt to manage the whole system by micromanaging every single tiny part of it. And on the complete other end of the spectrum, we have the San Francisco Art Institute. For 150 years, its system was this complex web of tuition, donations, reputation, real estate. But eventually, something in that underlying structure just gave way, and it led to a total system collapse. This document is literally the archaeology of that failure. And that formal language isn't just legal boilerplate, it's the system itself declaring that its internal structure couldn't support its function anymore. It's the final chapter of a long, slow, systemic breakdown. So, we've looked at biological wiring, and we've looked at societal structures. Now, for the last piece of our puzzle, we're going to go even deeper, to the structure of an idea itself. And this is where it gets really, really cool. So René Thom proposed that a reality is built on just a handful of basic event shapes. He called them archetypal morphologies. And the idea is that a sentence like "the rock rolled down the hill" and a phrase like "the stock market crashed" might actually share the exact same deep structural grammar. Let's make that more concrete. Tom actually mapped out the universal act of giving. It has 3 core parts, right? A source, a recipient, and an object. A stable state gets disrupted, a transfer happens, and then a new stable state is reached. It doesn't matter if it's Peter giving Anne a hammer or a company giving a customer a product. The underlying system, the actual shape of the event, is identical. A brain's hidden wiring, the rules of control and collapse, the grammar of an event. We've got all our pieces on the table now, so it's time for the big reveal. Here it is, the master key that connects every single one of them. This is it. This is systems thinker Don Alameto's hierarchy of leverage points. And what it does is it ranks the most effective places to intervene in any system, from the least powerful to the most powerful. This diagram is the Rosetta Stone for our entire puzzle. It shows that all 4 of our documents were just describing different parts of the very same universal truth. Okay, let's start at the very bottom. The weakest lever you can pull, changing numbers and parameters. Think of that 3.6 gram sales limit in the DEA manual. It's just a number. You could change it to 3.5, you could change it to 4.0, but you're not fundamentally changing the system of drug control. It's the easiest change to make, which is why it's also the least powerful. Now, moving up the lever, we find the rules of the system. This is way more effective. This isn't just that 3.6 gram number. This is the entire architecture of the DEA's logbooks, their reporting requirements, the certification process. If you change these rules, you have a much bigger impact because you're actually changing the structure of how information flows and what people are incentivized to do. Now we're getting into the really powerful stuff. Near the top of the list is changing the goal of the system. And this brings us right back to the SFAI's collapse. You have to ask, what was its ultimate goal? Was it to be a financially stable business that also taught art? Or was it to pursue artistic excellence, even if that led to financial ruin? A change in that core goal would have changed absolutely everything about how the Institute behaved. And here we are, at the very top, the most powerful leverage point of all, changing the paradigm. This is the shared mindset, the deep-seated beliefs from which the entire system, its goals, its rules, its numbers, grows. It's the paradigm that tells us if drug use is a criminal problem or a public health problem. It's the paradigm that defines what an art school is even for in the 21st century. And here's the bottom line. If you really want to change the world, you don't just tweak the numbers. You have to challenge the paradigm. And that's what connects everything. The brain study, the DEA manual, the bankruptcy filing, that linguistic theory, they're all about understanding the structure that lives just beneath the surface. They all show us that to solve really complex problems, you have to find the right place to push. You have to find the right leverage point. So the question I'll leave you with is, now that you have the key, what system will you look at differently? What paradigm will you challenge first?